You with the stars in your eyes. All right, enough of that. Hi, my name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, how it impacts you, how it impacts uh, the upcoming week, and to a certain extent, the upcoming months. I did get some feedback. Oh, by the way, I am moving forward to um, work on the roundtable that I promised you, and I know I've been promising that for a long time, and also the interview with Alan Anand, uh, and also I may have a special guest from Ireland come on and speak. So it should be an interesting few months. This will be the Ireland interview will be probably not until October sometime, but I am still working with Saptarishi Astrology. This video doesn't uh, get shared with Saptarishi because I think that would be an imposition to them. But Saptarishi has some excellent courses. I'd recommend you check them out. I'd also, if you're interested in getting a reading with me directly, I can be contacted at 508 525 0001 or at garygomesg@gmail.com. Those are the easiest ways to get me. I also have Facebook pages. I also have Instagram pages. I also have X, what used to be Twitter. Now it's Twitter. Now it's X. Uh, and I also have LinkedIn pages. So there's a variety of ways you can get in touch with me. The I'm noticing the video is seems to be lagging a little bit this week. It could be because I have something going on in the background on the computer. I hope this is coming through okay. And so again, feel free to contact me if you're an astrologer. Uh, Admittedly, this doesn't have a large spread, and I'm very much aware of that. But we are growing. We're over 600 subscribers now, and these things don't happen overnight. Again, with your support and with your viewership, this will continue to grow, and we'll have a good, straightforward discussion of astrology, what it means to life in the world overall, and also we'll have more exciting backgrounds and more exciting videos coming up. Also, I did want to say I am still working on the music channel. I haven't decided which format I'm going to do, whether or not it'll be a straight talk like this one will be, or something else, because I have these very unusual interests in music, and I'd like to share them with people. I'm not expecting it really to be an extremely profitable page, but at least it'll help me uh, share some of my interests with you, the viewer. And excuse me, ask for good luck. I'm recovering from a slight cold this week, so yeah. So let's, without further, I'm gonna sneeze again. Sorry. So without further ado, I hope you didn't catch anything when I did that. Without further ado, let's get on and look at the astrology chart. Um, Late September, early mid-October, there will be a special on retrograde planets on Saptarishi astrology. We have a bunch happening right now, and we'll discuss those in a few minutes. Uh, a bunch of retrogrades and about to be retrogrades. So this will be kind of an interesting time, especially in early September. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit in advance. I've also been communicating more with the chat room. on this, more of the questions and answers on this, and I will go over the Rahu and Ketu transits into Pisces and Virgo a bit more over the next couple of months. I'm not going to go into it right now because it's really a little bit too close to it. But I think one of the things that I can say about that right now is the Ketu into Virgo can cause unexpected or unanticipated health problems. Or if you've been putting off an operation for a long time, that's the time to really that's the time to really get it because they'll be very careful when they're operating, and they'll also spot some things they wouldn't have spotted normally. So that's one good aspect of that K2 and Virgo transit. I think the other thing is you'll also see a lot of the last time it was a K2 and Virgo transit. I had an operation, but it wasn't for, so it would have been 19 years ago. I was trying to think of what was happening in the world 19 years ago, 19, 20 years ago, 1918, between 18 and 20 years ago. So that's around 2005. That was when we got the prelude to that was Rahu in, so I'll talk about this just for a second, was K2 in Libra and um, and K2 in Libra. I just see K2 in Libra. Yeah, that would have been about right. K2 in Libra uh, uh, was essentially that was the capture of Saddam Hussein. That was um, the lead up to the um, that was the mortgage lending, the start of the mortgage lending crisis to a certain extent. That was when a lot of people were being loaned money who really didn't have the wherewithal to support the kinds of mortgage they were being given. So it's essentially um, not really a bust kind of a cycle, but it's sort of like led up to uh, the extreme optimism that led to the bust in 2007. So we should watch out for world events. And it was sort of like the trigger for a lot of economic trends that essentially caused a major collapse in 2007. But it wasn't the actual collapse. I think one of the things that one of my friends in um, Lebanon has been uh, talking to me about a great deal is the BRICS countries. And while I'm not really all that afraid, so that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, uh, and what's the last one? It's in Spain. It's BRICS. Essentially, it's a loose, and the BRICS membership has been growing. So Saudi Arabia is now a member. United Arab Emirates is now a member. Um, and BRICS is essentially trying to set up an alternative to the dollar as a worldwide currency. I think you'll see some effort happen in that direction. They'll become more powerful. They're responsible for around 43% of the world's wealth right now, from what I saw recently. Um, and they could be a very powerful economic force. Essentially they're trying to make a multi-centered um, currency Uh, so so essentially, the dollar has been the dominant um, currency over the past, I want to say, at least the past 30 years, probably the past six, 50 years since Bretton Woods. So I think you'll see some shifts in the powerful in the focus of power. The problem we run into is that China, who's by far the largest BRICS member, is looking at an economic um, deflationary period. So they're not going to be in as strong a position as they once were. Had this happened around 4 or 5 years ago, um, this would be a major issue. Um, and but astrologically, we can see an upset or a change or a fluidity in currency rates, and that's essentially something that's determined through Virgo because that's accounting, and also through Pisces because that's essentially world events. Okay, and shifts in world events. So I'll just talk. So that's briefly. That's one ramification of the transit. Obviously, it's multi-level and you don't just have one event causing changes, or you don't have just one result coming from um, that. You'll also see a shift and increasing criticism of the legal system, mainly because of Cage going into Virgo and Rahu going into Pisces. The other thing that I was asked about, so those are the two things I can see happening. The other two things, the other things that were mentioned to me was uh, how I felt about COVID, and there are an increasing number of cases of COVID, and I think that's a reflection more so of Saturn's retrograde into Aquarius or in Aquarius and moving back towards uh, the sign of Capricorn. And I'm tending to think that we will see an increase in cases in the fall, probably around the time of the eclipse in October 26th, roughly November 6th. We'll see kind of a peak. This variant does not look to be very strong. And essentially, um, I'm not expecting it to do very much in terms of the way we had major lockdowns in during the last COVID uh, epidemic, which seems to be a rolling epidemic. But basically, these things will have echoes. You know, epidemics historically have had echoes, and but these seem to be kind of, we don't know just yet, but this one seems to be kind of a mild variant. So I'm no doctor, or I'm not that kind of a doctor, and I can't judge the impact it'll have. But um, with the economy being a little bit unstable now, with um, a lot of indicators and with um, a lot of worry about different money centers, although people who make money will always figure out ways to make money. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Wall Street's investing in BRICS uh, countries right now. Um, I think one of the things you'll see is around late October, a combination of like disease and uncertainty about the future cause a kind of an economic panic. Now, I don't think this is going to be a very big panic, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be a rather contained one. Um, and so, because we don't have a lot of planets clustering in those particular signs. So, we'll talk about that more, but do people have to be, people should be careful about going out. They should, I'm not at all convinced that what hit me last week was wasn't the COVID variant. I don't know, to be honest with you. Um, and I think it's quite possible that there will be attempts to um, protect people, and it depends on how you view that word, protect people from COVID again. But I'm also thinking that when Venus goes direct, they'll have a better handle on what's happening. Because Venus is essentially the ruler of allopathic medicine. It's not the ruler of homeopathic, it's the ruler of allopathic medicine, which has to do with drugs and pharmaceuticals and things like that. And this Saturn retrograde has been kind of a problem for it. Now let's look at the chart for right now. I don't want to go too long about this because I want to look at the actual chart that we have. And we have the moon in Sagittarius, fairly early degree. The ascendant is Mula Nakshatra. So I've been talking about, without realizing it, I've been talking about change or disruption uh, or breaking down of old systems. And I actually think that's kind of a healthy thing. It feels like a pain when you're going through it, but it's kind of a healthy thing because essentially you have to re-examine the systems under which you are operating every once in a while in order to, number one, improve them, and number two, get rid of what's not good and rebuild. It's not really um, there's no such thing as a static system. It's just um, it doesn't exist in nature. Uh, Evolution is always continuously occurring, even if we can't see it. It occurs at a very slow rate in some species and a very rapid rate in other species. Um, and there is some indication that our minds are being reprogrammed right now. Um, and there's a fascinating video I saw years ago, and it was a YouTube video, and there's speculation that human beings have essentially stopped evolving because we're not hitting as many challenges. And what I mean by that is, at least for large chunks of the population, um, food resources are fairly good. Now, this isn't for everybody. I have to underline that. But food resources are fairly stable, and um, and there's not the fight or the day-to-day need um, to adjust our biology, to favor certain individuals above other individuals. So that doesn't mean that we're not going to get any smarter, but um, essentially, a lot of us, it means either slower or less obvious physiological change as we grow older. A lot of the physiological changes we've seen over the past 100 years or so have been due to improved diet. And again, this is not universally true, but it's basically true. And so let's look at this moon sitting in the first house as Lord of the eighth house. So that's another indicator that there'll be change coming over the next week. So we know that as of early September, and Mercury just went retrograde. As I pointed out in my comments section last week, Mercury just went retrograde. So this still means that communications will not be very good. The one advantage to Mercury retrograde is that it actually provides a good opportunity for bargains. You'll have people approaching you and giving you like all kinds of deals on things. And also, at least from the chart, Saturn is still affecting them. Retrograde Saturn is still affecting them. Mercury retrograde. Sun is still aspected by Saturn. So that means government's going to be bogged down for the next month or so. This is kind of sleepy time in Washington. And a lot of governments around the world are sort of on vacation, but this Saturn influence on Venus, which I use, and Venus's influence on Moon overall, because we have a retrograde, so it's aspecting from, no, Venus is yeah, it's aspecting from Gemini as well as from Cancer, will mean increased um, reminiscences of previous efforts, previous a sort of nostalgia. Venus retrograde manifests as a sort of nostalgia. But let me talk about the eighth house, because I think one of the things that's fascinating is we have the Lord of the eighth house in the first house. So that usually means people are going to be digging up things and bringing them out into the open, and talking more about things that have been hidden or hidden away. The other thing is, with Saturn being in the third house, again, we have a large push for technology and even rediscovering some technologies that we've ignored or left in the past. And I think this could be kind of an exciting period over the next few months of picking up some technologies which have been abandoned, and re-examining them to see if they can work. So there has been a certain reversal in some parts of the world on the position on nuclear power. Some people in the United States are actually changing their positions a bit on nuclear power as concern over greenhouse uh, out of climate change increases. Saturn is still aspecting Jupiter, so again, we have authorities who are really being questioned. Jupiter Rahu, there are scandals about authority figures. And again, I think one of the big things that we're missing right now is a lot of um, religious scandals and a lot of religious um, uncertainty. There's a strong desire to, when Rahu and Jupiter are conjunct, I've noticed this before, there's a strong desire for authenticity. So essentially, Rahu will approach Jupiter. Jupiter's the planet of wisdom, and saying, well, you provided all this information to us, all this wisdom to us. Why isn't it working? And I think that particular combination, this applies to people like, let's say, like Sinead O'Connor being vindicated to a certain extent, although it came after her death. And that's just one example. And also people being unjustly accused, people viewing people looking for justice or being dissatisfied by the rate at which justice is taking place, or people talking about a dual conception of justice, not only in the United States, but around the world. And this is also, it tends to give us dissatisfaction with institutions. So you have candidates, not only in the United States, but around the world, calling for change or reform in systems of government. So that's going to continue at least until December. And since Saturn is aspecting Jupiter after December, it won't be the dissatisfaction that you'll be feeling. You'll actually be seeing people actively trying to change governments, and this will continue for the next couple of years. Um, and whether that's peaceful or violent, I don't know what it's going to be right now. Given the planetary transits, it'll be a combination of both. And Mars also is aspecting Jupiter right now. So there's a lot of malefic energy being directed at Jupiter right now. In the United States, we were also getting some calls for um, eliminating the FBI, eliminating some law enforcement officials. And again, this is not just from the right. This is not a new phenomenon from the right. This was also something that was it was the phenomenon. People shouldn't forget the defund the police um, emphasis that occurred a couple of years ago in 2020. It's this is not really something which is a right or a left wing phenomena. In the left, it's more at a local level. In the right, it's more at a national level. But I think this is like a fascinating time to be looking at these things. Um, and again, it's there's also some dismay with education departments and with education in general because of Rahu both changing education and bringing unexpected elements into it, and also people wanting to essentially um, make education more accountable to local residents and less bureaucratically controlled. So there are a lot of things going on right now that have to do with that Rahu Jupiter conjunction, and it'll be over in November. But that doesn't mean the pressure for reform won't um, remain, because basically you'll have Saturn still aspecting Jupiter until next April. So that's pretty. It's going to be a pretty intense time. In terms of the government and in terms of Saturn's aspecting the sun right now, the government's coming under intense scrutiny from both sides of the political aisle. And this is true not only in the United States, but like I said, around the world. This is not unique to the United States. Um, there have been a few upset victories. I believe in Argentina, there was one just recently. Uh, there was definitely one in uh, in Ecuador, and there are also some major changes happening in not necessarily in China, but in Australia, New Zealand, and uh, there are some realignments happening in Germany. France is under continued pressure, especially from Niger, which is a and there's some more information coming to light about how France has essentially there's a large swath of land through Africa that France essentially controls. Yeah, so it's and it's these are former colonial possessions that it's been exploiting for years, and so it depends on whose um, argument you take, but a lot of that has to do with the Rahu Jupiter conjunction too, and Mars aspecting Rahu and Jupiter and Saturn aspecting Jupiter. So Jupiter's under pretty intense attack. Again, like last week, Saturn is dominating this chart. Saturn is um, it's the poor, it's the disenfranchised. Um, it's so is Rahu to a certain extent, so is Ketu to a certain extent. And I think one of the things that I've noticed recently is there tends to be more and more um, not distrust, because essentially there's still a lot of faith in business and in the military in the United States, but there have been some increasing criticism coming out, and they'll get more aggressive in December. Uh, the other thing is we have down here. So Mars just entered um, Virgo. I'm unhappy to report they did have a major storm in California last weekend, and I mentioned the possibility of earthquakes, and that happened in California right in the middle of a major storm. Uh, and also, Turkey got beset by three minor earthquakes between the 20th and the 23rd. Um, and when I say minor, these are like, I think they're category 4 to category 3 to category 5 earthquakes. So they're not exactly small things, but they're not, it's not good. And you'll probably see more earthquake and volcano and bad weather activity around the world over the next month or so. Now, this is fairly typical of September, especially in the United States. This is uh, hurricane season in the United States. We're entering, and we should see some fairly large storms in the United States. Um, and a lot of this, something like this would be happening regardless of the climate change scenario, okay, because of the astrological combinations. So I'm not saying that climate change is or isn't real. I'm saying that essentially the astrological factors are causing it. Uh, when Mars and K2 come together, which will be in about 2 months, we should expect some major disruption in both stock markets and in the ecology. So this will be a time to watch out for. And I'm thinking that late October, early November will be kind of a critical time um, for the world. Uh, but again, I'm not seeing any major wars break out. Maybe there'll be an escalation in between Russia and Ukraine. Maybe China, because China is essentially has critical planets in this particular sign. Maybe China will engage in some aggressive action. Um, who knows? But and I'll look at those world events more carefully in a subsequent video. But I want to move on to the individual chart. So it's not all gloom and doom. I mean, keep in mind, but the next couple of months in particular are going to be very difficult. So essentially, that's so especially between now and mid-November. After that, it'll feel like a lot of pressure will be taken off, a lot of angst will be gone, but I think you're going to see a lot of roiling over the next couple of months. So in terms of um, be careful about um, health. Be careful about exposure. I don't see the United States economy or any economy collapsing for that matter. But things are going to get a little bit shaky over the next couple of months. Okay, so and the Mars K2 conjunction will almost happen pretty close to the eclipses. So it's something to be mindful of, not to be afraid of, but to be mindful of. All right, so let's look at the individual astrological signs. But over the next week, just a lot of communications issues, really because of the Mercury retrograde. But again, good deals. Relationship life should be a little bit troubling, so people will be ready to fight in relationships at the drop of a hat. Um, and also there'll be what I would call power struggles in relationships. So for those of you who have had relationship problems, those probably won't go away rapidly. Probably not for about 3 months or so. And but they won't be quite as aggressive uh, this week, I don't think. All right, so let's go on to the individual signs. For Aries, we have for Aries we have Rahu and Jupiter in the first house, as we've had for a long time now. And that gives opportunities to this sign, opportunities to invest, to spend. You actually have a fairly nice chart for Aries because you have Venus in the fourth house, so relationship life will improve. Moon is in the ninth house, so uh, essentially career life should improve. Saturn's in the 11th, it should be gains from careers. But again, people will still feel like they're not making enough money. The other thing I like to put your attention to is the Lord of the Sign is in the sixth house, so it'll be working a lot over the next few months. Um, and again, this is for people with Sun, Moon, or Aries rising. So that Sun is fairly easy to judge. That's April 15th to May 15th. Um, for and keep in mind, Ketu is now in a nakshatra called Chitra, which is a Mars ruled nakshatra. So a lot of people with planets in Virgo will have um, there'll be more antagonism at the drop of a hat. So watch out for explosive tempers for both yourself and for any people you know who have Sun or Moon in uh, in in Virgo or Libra, and that's essentially people born between um, roughly between September 15th and October 30th. Okay, so Taurus has, I'm sorry about that. Taurus has Rahu and Jupiter in the 12th house. Um, and this will give expenditures to desires or desires for luxury. Venus, the Lord of Taurus, is in the third house, so this sign will be very generous. It'll be fairly nostalgic. Sun and Mercury are in the fourth house. Um, a lot of attention to home life, a lot of attention to responsibilities connected with home and children. Um, Fights with kids because Mars is in the fifth house. K2's in the sixth. This sign has to be careful about health issues and accidents. This will be especially true as Mars gets closer to K2. So around the end of October, around the end of September, beginning of October, just be really careful about traveling. And essentially, the seventh Lord is in the third house. So those who aren't in relationships will find relationships this month. Moon is in the eighth house. That's fairly good um, for feeling like you want to be alone, or even though there'll be relationship opportunities. Saturn's in the 10th house, very good for career, but again, watch out for spending patterns. Very, very strong tendency to spend too much for Taurus Sun, May 15th to June 15th. Gemini Sun has Gemini Sun, Moon, rising sign has Mercury in the third house retrograde, so communications with these folks will be kind of confused or kind of wrecked. Saturn's aspecting Mercury too, so that's not a good sign. You'll hear positive things. Venus is in the second house. Um, this, there'll be a lot of longing for past affiliations, for past romantic involvements. A lot of people who broke up over the past month will stay broken up for about another 3 weeks. And then there'll be a slow roll back to getting relationship partners back. But it'll still be problematic until the end of November. Relationships will still be problematic until the end of November. Sun and Mercury are in the third house, so there'll be a strong desire to communicate, a lot of, but going over past efforts. Mars is in the fourth house, so some emotional pain from this particular alignment. K2's in the fifth, so children will be seen to be fairly aggressive and fairly strong-willed during this particular period of time. Moon is in the seventh house, indicates some change, maybe potentially new relationship partners coming in, maybe somebody from the past coming in. And Saturn's in the ninth house, very good for slow, steady approach to work. Rahu and Jupiter, some financial gains, but again, blocked a little bit, not really as strong as you'd like them. And friends turn into enemies with this combination. For Cancer, Cancer has Venus retrograde in the first house. So again, there's a lot of focus on romantic relationships. People will feel kind of lonely with this combination. The Lord of the first house is in the sixth house, so you'll have to be careful about health issues for this sign, and also depression. For um, for the second house, Sun and Mercury are in the second house. Some good opportunities to make money and find bargains. A lot of courage for this sign over this coming 2-month period. K2's in the fourth house, so there's a strong aggressive energy from this combination. So in turn, if you've been hurt by somebody, you'll strike back, and there may even be disagreements at home. No planets are in the seventh house. Seventh house Lord is in the eighth, and that indicates you'll feel locked or isolated in relationships. Saturn is aspecting, but again, this is a good time to really figure out what you want in a relationship. Jupiter's in the ninth house with Rahu. That'll actually give good opportunities for growth and financial success. And no planets are in the 10th house, or in the 11th house, excuse me. But the Lord of the 11th is in the first, so there'll be financial gains from past projects. For Leo, Leo's place in his sun is placed in its own sign in Leo. Unfortunately, it's aspected by Saturn, which interferes with its success patterns to a certain extent, and communications will be slow or stymied, and there may be some reversals in plans for this sign. But Mars is in the second house. This sign will be very aggressive, it will be very forceful, it will be very aggressive. That's true about K2 in the third as well. K2 in Chitra is more about breaking down to build up again. So is Moon in the fifth house, so there'll be a desire to capture things from the past, but they'll be expensive. And also from this chart. So Venus is in the 12th. There'll be a strong desire to save money too. That's a good manifestation of Venus, by the way. Saturn's in the 7th house, so relationship life will be stable if a bit boring. Rahu and Jupiter are in the 9th house, good for financial gains, good for luck. And the Lord of the 10th is in the 12th house. That means career life could bring some financial losses. For Virgo, Mars is in the 1st house, so this sign is going to be more prone to fighting, more prone to arguing. However, on the positive side, it'll get more things done. Ketu's in the 2nd house, so there's a little bit of rancor or a little bit of antagonism generated by this sign. Moon is in the 4th house, so there's a strong desire to disrupt and change and make your life more what you want it to be. Saturn is in the 6th house. You have to be careful about overdoing it. Jupiter's in the 8th house. There's a lot of research into metaphysical or spiritual subjects. 9th house Lord is Venus. Is in the 11th house. That should give good financial gains, probably from people you've dealt with before. And we have this combination of Sun and Mercury in the 12th house. So again, it's this focus on trying to save money, trying to build up reserves, which will be fought by the Saturn aspect. So not a bad week for Virgo, but really, just a lot of contentiousness. For Libra, Libra has no planets except Ketu in the 1st, and this sign will be intensely devoted on past career successes and on rejuvenating career. Mars is in the 12th house, so you'll have a lot of expenditures going out. This will be true over the next couple of months. But you'll also have a lot of gains, especially over the next month or so because of Sun and Mercury. But they'll be done at a cost. They'll require a lot of hard work. Moon is in the 3rd house, so there's not a strong desire to really cause a lot of disruption. Although, like I said, there will be a lot of reconsideration over careers for this sign. Saturn's in the 5th house. That's surely good for past life credit if you're willing to work. Jupiter's in the 7th house. Again, it'll introduce the potential for long-term relationship partners. I just think there's a real problem with Rahu, and the Rahu tends to make people feel like they're going to get a really good relationship partner when it's really something less than what it seems to be. So again, partnerships, unless they're for publicity purposes, aren't really to be encouraged at this particular time. And Venus in the 10th, we already discussed that. So we already discussed these houses basically. Scorpio has Moon in the 2nd house, so there's a strong desire for change of luck. Saturn's in the 4th. Saturn's still aspecting Scorpio, so it's going to be working a lot over the next few weeks. Saturn's aspecting the 6th house. That's not a bad combination. Actually, it'll give this sign a lot of determination, a lot of courage to move forward. Venus is in the 9th. It'll give luck to relationship partners. And Sun and Mercury are in the 10th house of career. Mars is in the 11th house of gains. So this gives gains through both career and self-promotion, and to a certain extent through certain friends and through land. For Sagittarius, Moon is in the 1st house in Sagittarius. It can indicate some disruption, some overturning of previous belief systems. Saturn's in the 3rd house, aspecting Jupiter. If Saturn's aspecting Jupiter for this rising sign, it'll make it feel a little bit depressed or a little bit limited. And Venus is in the 8th house. That'll give it a lot of interest in looking up occult or metaphysical solutions or researching things in order to solve its problems. Sun's in the ninth house. That's good for career growth. So is Mars in the 10th. Again, don't trust friends. If you have to work with people, do things under contract or under agreements. For Capricorn, Capricorn has um, no planets in the first, except for that Pluto that's sitting there. Saturn's in the second house, and I don't talk about Pluto just because I think it's, again, like I said, I think it's a redundant factor in the chart. Saturn is in the second house, and it will make this sign more inventive, more interested in previous efforts. Venus is directly aspecting Capricorn, so some potential for rekindling lost loves or lost relationships. Um, Saturn in the second aspect in the fourth house, a lot of expenditures on home matters or on family matters. Fifth house Lord is in the seventh, so some potential for romantic involvements, especially love affairs. And Sun is in the eighth house along with Mercury, so this sign will be a little bit shy or a little bit secretive this week. Mars is in the ninth. That's actually a good combination for career success for this sign. And K2's in the 10th, so not a lot of really strong career growth. And also relationship partners will be keeping some secrets from you. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Saturn in the first house, aspecting Jupiter and Rahu in the third. So this gives this particular sign some position of authority. Um, Venus is in the sixth house, not the best placement for this particular planet in this chart. But I think one of the things you have to look at is that Venus will improve things with effort, especially after September 5th or 6th. And Sun is in the seventh house, so there'll be a lot of focus on long-term relationships and some mixed up communications too. Mars is in the eighth. This is Mars affliction. So again, this sign can be a little bit victimized by relationship partners. Not a good time to get into a relationship. K2's in the ninth. Some unexpected turns of luck. And Moon's in the 11th. Some unexpected gains. For Pisces, finally, Jupiter's in the second house, along with Rahu. Venus is in the fifth house, so some good luck with family and kids. Sun is in the sixth house, have to watch out for health. Mars is in the seventh, a lot of fighting in relationship matters. Uh, and also, again, relationship partners hiding some things from you, or business partners hiding some things from you. Moon is in the 10th, strong interest in change in career. And Saturn in the 12th, again, watch out for heavy expenditure patterns, especially on things you really don't need. For the astral locality chart, hold on a second. Let me move this over. I went far longer than I wanted to on the first part, so this will be kind of quick. And let's see now. So danger areas that I would look at in this chart would be Hawaiian Islands are still under threat. There's a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of anger in Hawaii right now. A lot of sadness, obviously, because of the fires. Um, and some dismay. Um, Canada is having some problems with the government up around this part of the country. Uh, Also, Alaska is a little bit unhappy right now. Some governmental scandals look like they're heading up there. There's a Sun-Saturn line going through Nevada and Utah and all the way down from Washington, eastern Washington, down to Idaho, down uh, into Arizona, and touching on California, and touching on the west coast of Mexico. So this will give some deprivation or some unwanted government interference in these areas. Um, there's a Mercury line running through Michigan all the way down through Central America, and that should give some problems with communications in those parts, maybe some breakdowns in communications up through central Canada, up to what we call central Canada. It's really not, but that's what we tend to call it. And there's a Mars line running, it looks like, down through Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, all the way down to Florida. So I wouldn't be surprised. And also on the west coast of South America. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some violence there. Um, Venus is a Rahu line running through Brazil down to Argentina. So some governmental scandal will show up in this region of the world. And as a matter of fact, there'll be some violence in far western South America and Ecuador and Peru. And there's a Jupiter line running up through central. Yeah, so some problems with the government in Brazil and also some potential for flooding in Brazil. Sun is passing over West Africa, and we have a Mercury-Mars line, so there should be some violence in France again, even in Norway, Germany, and down through Italy and down through um, Northwest Africa, all the way down to Ghana. Um, and there's a moon line, changeable governments in Turkey or disruptions in governments in Turkey and also um, in this region here, maybe even close to Ukraine. So this looks like um, yeah, this is the borderline, right? Right next to Ukraine. So some definite changes in governments. Egypt, Sudan, down through Mozambique, down through South Africa. Um, and finally, we have um, a Jupiter Rahu line over here, a Jupiter Venus line over here. So some danger of water catastrophes over here. And as we go over it a little bit more to the west, some government oppression or some government crackdowns in India and throughout Western China and also throughout central Russia, and even some violence and some discord all the way through Cambodia and um, Laos and Thailand. Um, Governmental authority will be very strong in Bangladesh, it looks like from the chart. And there may even be some flooding in Pakistan and um, Afghanistan again. Finally, as we go over here, um, we have a Rahu line, so this will give some panic in the government in China, some changes in the government in Korea and Japan, and even down into Australia. New Zealand, again, some kind of police measures in New Zealand. Okay, so that's what it looks like to me. I have to run. I ran a little bit longer than I want to. I love you all. Thank you all for watching. God bless you, everyone. Challenges present opportunities. So don't forget that. Even though the chart's a little bit rough this week, you can still turn it around. Okay? Thanks, everyone. Bye bye, and God bless. Namaste.